Hey, welcome back to Next Third, Best Third. I'm David Fenwick, the founder and host, and today I want to explore the fact that Americans are living longer than they ever have before. But there's some questions that I have, and these questions are, why are we living longer? What does it look like to live longer? And do you even really want to live longer, right? Listeners under age 50, and by the way, the vast majority of our subscribers and listeners are well under the age of 50. It's been an interesting journey this last 10 months as we started off really targeting men who are 50 years and older, and our listeners and subscribers are men and women, but most of them are under 50. So I find that just a little side note that has been very, very cool. But if you're under 50, I want you to take special note because I want you to be considering your future self. As we start talking about living longer, some of the challenges that brings and what it looks like, is challenge yourself to say, hey, I'm going to invest in my future self. And then also, for some of you, you've got parents who are in their late 50s, 60s, 70s. I want you to consider encouraging them and challenging them to really look at their lives and where they've settled, where they've been complacent, and where they've just compromised and maybe even given up hope. Starting with statistics, the average life expectancy in America today, both genders, is 78 years. 78 years is the average life expectancy, but 24% of all Americans today will reach the age of 90. Think about that. We're going to reach the age of 90. 31% of American men who reach the age of 65 will reach the age of 90. So when a man reaches the age of 65, 31% of them, almost a third of those men, are going to live to age 90. But the question comes down is, what is that going to look like, right? What does it look like to live to 90? We look in some of the struggles that men have going forward. Obesity, for instance. Obesity over age 65 is the total of people over age 65 who are obese is 31%. Now think about this. In 1998, that was 22%. And in 2018, it was 41%. Almost doubled in 20 years. We've got a catastrophic situation happening with obesity. I was watching a documentary, and this documentary was colorizing old film, right? And it was just a really cool thing. And they had, back in the 1930s, 1940s, had put a camera in downtown New York, and they just, this big old fashioned, those big old cameras, and they put it on a street corner in downtown New York, and they just filmed people. And people were, they were looking up and smiling, and they were colorizing this, so they're getting it from black and white to color. And as I was watching it, I realized there wasn't anybody overweight. I mean, streets, just full streets of people walking in New York City, and everybody was thin. There was nobody overweight. Finally, there was one woman who stood out, and she was overweight. She was this stocky woman, right? But she was the only one I saw. So then they did these films of like Wrigley Field and Fenway Park and Yankee Stadium, and they just panned the crowds, right? And the game's going on, and the crowd's cheering and everything. And again, there was hardly anybody overweight. I dare say that if you went to Yankee Stadium or Wrigley Field or Fenway Park today, that you would see at least half the people overweight, if not more. Statistics show that. So we've got a real problem here. We've got a problem that, okay, let's just say a man hits 65 and he's going to live. Now, if he's obese, he's not going to make 90, just be honest with you. But let's say he lives another 10 years. Let's say he reaches that age 78. What is those next 13 years going to look like for this guy, right? It deeply concerns me because so many men that I work with, so many men that are involved in my life and I'm in their life, are men who I care deeply about, and I'm looking at them, I'm going, what is the quality of your life going to look like over the next 13, 15 years? Modern medicine and technology is extending our life expectancy, right? But what does that look like? Are we really extending our lives, or are we merely delaying death? Because so much of what people are doing, so many people, when they reach that age of 60, 65, they're really on this path just to death. They're just kind of trying to stay alive and delay death, and they're not living to their fullest. And I'm telling you, there's so much more for you. There's so much more for you. I'm 66 years old. My life is full. I don't use the word busy anymore. I kid my family and friends. I say I use the word full, but it's true. My life is so full. I'm a pastor. I'm in real estate. I take acting lessons. I've got this podcast. So much of my life is just active and full. I work out faithfully. I watch what I eat. But only 13.9% of Americans 65 or older could really say the same thing. And what I mean by that is only 13.9% of Americans 65 and older meet the physical activity guidelines for aerobic and muscle strengthening, if you will. And what does that mean? The physical activity guidelines are this: a minimum of 150 minutes a week of moderate aerobic exercise. That's going for a 30-minute walk 5 days a week. Just a 30-minute walk 5 days a week. Or if you want to take an hour walk, it's like 3 days a week. You go out for about an hour or 45 minutes. And then adding in 2 days with muscle training, right? Of muscle strengthening. And that doesn't have to mean moving heavy weights. As a matter of fact, I go to the gym, and one of the things as you get a little bit older, you have to be careful. You have to be careful that you're not putting yourself in injury. Because if you injure yourself at 65, 70 years old, the recovery time is much longer and it's much more difficult. So it's not like going after intense muscle strengthening, but it's muscle strengthening in general, right? With on purpose. I have found over the last few years as I've been in the gym, it's really difficult to build muscle at my age. It just is. I'm doing it and I've added muscle, but it's so hard. And in maintaining that muscle, you have to be diligent. You have to be purposeful. So the question I ask all the time, and I've said this many times, is, are we adding years to your life? Are we adding years to our life? Just adding years to our life? Or are you adding life to your years, right? That's what I want to see. I want to see whether you live to 75, 80, 90, whatever age you live to, I want it to be full. I want to encourage you to be dreaming, like, what could this look like, right? What could my life look like? I don't want to merely live longer. Just living longer isn't the goal. I mean, there's people who are living longer. They're grossly out of shape. Their mental decay is setting in. They have very little purpose. They're not pursuing. They're not investing in other people's lives. They're just hanging on, and that's not a way to live. That's no way to live. I want my life, I want your life to be full. I want it to be full where you're adding life to yours. Every year you're exploring. Every year you're investing. Every year you're being purposeful. Every year you're trying something new. It's so often you see guys, men in particular, right, who, I'm sure it's true for women, but the men in particular who they've worked their career, they've reached a point where they're either retired or shutting it down. They're getting close to retirement. And that's a whole nother conversation for another day is the facade of retirement in this country. But it's almost like they say, hey, I've lived my life. Now I'm just going to coast. And they start to get complacent, as I've said before. They start to kind of get lazy. They lose dreams. They lose vision. They lose purpose. Their relationships around, they don't have as many real strong relationships. And next thing you know, they're sitting there and they're 70 years old. And it's just them and their wife. Maybe the grandkids come to visit periodically, but they just have very little going on. And it's so sad. Now, when we talk about regular physical activity, whatever you do, don't miss that because it's crucial. Physical activity, intentional, regular physical activity is crucial to you adding life to your years. Physical activity, regular physical activity, improves your cognitive function. Your cognitive function. Alzheimer's is on the rise, and it has been diagnosed as type 3 diabetes. There are 7 million people in America today diagnosed with Alzheimer's. That is nearly double, or that's been nearly doubled over the past 25 years, and they say in another 25 years, that's going to be doubled. So you're looking at 13 to 14 million people in 25 years from now going to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Dementia will double, they say, in the next 30 years. And what is really dementia and so much of this cognitive disease that Americans are facing? So much of it can be traced to blood flow to the brain. Blood flow to the brain. Diet and exercise increases blood flow to the brain. And it's the greatest way to fight against dementia. Physical activity helps your balance. We're going to talk here in a little bit about the struggle with balance and falling as you get older. I know myself, I'm in a group of exercise class that I'm in, and a lot of times we're doing some things with balance, and the younger people in there, they're having no problem, and I'm struggling with it, right? And I'm in good shape, and I'm struggling with it. There's just something that happens with your proprioception, and balance is a big deal, but regular physical activity improves your balance. It also improves your sleep quality. I talk to men all the time about sleep, and they'll say, well, I get up in the middle of the night, or I only sleep 5 hours, or I wrestle with sleep. Some nights are good, some nights are bad. People often say, hey, I got up at 3 this morning, I just couldn't sleep. Since I've been working out and really being intentional about it, I sleep better than I've ever slept in my life. Well, maybe not as a child, right? But as an adult, I sleep great. I don't get up in the middle of the night. I get 7, 8 hours sleep every single night, and I feel great about that. Physical activity also reduces your anxiety. It's been found that it reduces depression. I know that there was a time in my life not too long ago where I was going through depression because of circumstances in my life, and by really taking care of my health, about being intentional about self-care, and I would just do things like I would just go for walks. I would just I'd get down, I'd do push-ups, I'd do something, right? And as I would do that, I would find myself coming out of that depression. I'd find myself feeling better, feeling a little more hopeful, right? A little giddy up in my step, so to speak. And it was because of physical activity. And then it also, as we said about balance, physical activity reduces the risk of falling. And this is important. Now, again, you listeners who are under 50, I understand you don't get this, but put it in your library, your thoughts, because as you going forward, you want to be investing in the future you, which means you want to be intentional about exercising now. You want to be intentional about being making sure that you are on top of your health going forward, because you don't want to reach 65 and be so typical where 25% of people 65 and older fall every year. 25% of them fall every year. And with 40% of those who fall, 40% of those will fall multiple times in that same year. So basically saying, if you're 65, 70, 75 years old and you fall, there's a 40% chance that you're going to fall multiple times in that same year. And falls are the leading cause of injury-related deaths in America for people 65 and older. Falling. It's the leading cause of injury-related death. Falls-related deaths have increased 53% over the last 10 years. Why? Why is this happening? Well, I believe there's 2 reasons. I believe, first off, it's because of poor strength and balance in aerobic exercising, right? I believe that people are not investing as they get older in themselves. Plus, they add in the obesity, the poor diet that we have. So you've got unhealthy people, and they're not exercising, and falls are increasing. And then the other reason is medication. We're the most medicated society in the world. Once you get to be about age 60, 65, People have medicine cabinets just loaded with things that they're taking. These pill boxes, what do I take here? It's Monday, Tuesday. I'm not criticizing you if you're taking medicine, but we are so medicated. And pharmaceuticals have side effects, and a lot of those side effects are dizziness, lightheadedness, things like that, blood pressure issues. And that's all adding to the reality that we're seeing falls increase 53%. Now, as we're talking about this, what I hope to do is I really want to inspire you, right? I want to inspire you to examine your physical life right now, your physical condition today, and also examine your current lifestyle. If you're a man who, I don't care what age you are, look at your life, examine it. What am I doing physically? How am I doing physically? Statistics will tell us that 30% of you are obese, Vast majority of Americans are overweight. And why is that? Our lifestyle, right? We're busy. A lot of it's our diet. We eat all this processed food and fast food and too much sodas and just junk, in particular. But instead of criticizing, take honest appraisal, right? Take honest appraisal and then make a decision to invest in your future self, right? Invest in the future you. Start now. If you're 40 years old, be investing in the 60-year-old you. If you're 50 years old, be investing in the 70-year-old you. If you're my age, I'm investing in the 80, 85-year-old David. Dr. Peter Attia, who wrote the book Outlive, he talks in the book about having a decade decathlon, right? A decathlon for every decade of your life. These are things that he says that you want to physically be able to do in your 60s, the decade of your 60s, the decade of your 70s, and so forth. And I've wrote out a few things. And for me, one of the things is in my 80s, I want to be able to run a mile. I want to be able to run a mile in my 80s. I want to be able to get on the floor with my grandkids and great-grandkids and get up without assistance. I want to be the guy who walks up the stairs instead of taking the elevator at a hotel or a convention center or wherever I may be, right? In my 90s, I want to be able to walk a brisk mile. I want to be able to swim still. In my 90s, I want to be able to get up off the floor without assistance. My hope, and I fully expect to live into my 90s. If I don't, I don't. But I do want my life to be so enjoyable. I don't want it to be limited by physical conditions. And I can control that, and so can you. I hear this from friends and guys I work with. They say, well, I can't exercise because I got knee problems, or I've got back problems, or, I've got bad arthritis. And I'm not a doctor, but I'm going to tell you the vast majority is the reason you have back problems, the reason that you have knee problems, the reason that arthritis is, and inflammation is a problem is because you don't exercise. It's because you don't eat right and you don't exercise. Start somewhere. Start now. I want to encourage you. Just go for a walk. Make a decision to start going for a walk, even if it's just around the block, and do it every day. It's not hard. It's not hard. We all have time to do that. Simple things like deciding just to stretch every day and to see how many push-ups you can do, What if you dropped down and you did 5 push-ups 3 times a day? It's fantastic. That's a start. If you need a kickstart, or if you need help, that's nothing to be ashamed of, right? I remember talking with a friend who he decided to really go after this, and he started to really work out, and he's changed his life. But he said this, he said he was sick and tired of being sick and tired. A simple thing like, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. There's so much help out there for you. One of the best things you can do is hire a trainer. I know right away you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. No, hire a trainer. Not somebody who is just, at any old gym, but research and find a trainer who understands aging, who really understands the science of aging, and work with them. Take 2 months. So it costs you a couple $1,000s over 2 months. A couple $1,000s investing in the future you is nothing. And I doubt it'll cost that much, but still. So what if it costs you $300, $400, $500 a week? It's the best investment you can do. Investing in your future self. It's worth every penny. Another great thing is taking classes. I recently joined a gym that they specialize in these group classes. And it's not CrossFit, but it kind of is. It's in that way. And just being around 6, 7, 10 other people and working out, it's motivational. It inspires you. Get involved in classes. I'm telling you, you might have the YMCA near you. There might be a community gym, a community district, something like that has a local. They might be doing yoga classes. They might be doing aerobic classes. There's all sorts of things that you can do, but classes are great and they're very, very inexpensive. And really the best thing that I found too is to partner up, find somebody that you can do this with. If it's your partner, if it's your spouse, awesome. I think that's fantastic. But if it's not, if your spouse doesn't want to step into this with you, find somebody and challenge each other. That accountability is so powerful. Say, hey, we're going to meet here 8 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to do this. And you call each other up saying, hey, you might say, hey, I don't want to do this. I'm tired. The other one challenges you, inspires you. It's so important. But the key is to start now, to invest in yourself, to live with intentionality, because you're going to, barring something out of control, because of modern technology, because of modern medicine, you are going to live probably to about 80 years old, maybe longer. What's that going to look like? If you're 60 years old today, if you're 50 years old today, and you find yourself you're out of shape, you're uninspired, you are complacent, and you know it, and you're taking honest appraisal, that is, what are you going to do? Do whatever it takes. Kickstart. Jump in. I'm telling you, it's going to change your life. I'm doing things in my life today that I never dreamed I'd be doing. Again, I've never dreamed I'd be doing a podcast. I never dreamed I'd be in acting classes. The things that are happening in my life, I'm in almost the best shape of my life. And it's all happened, really, over the last 7, 8 years. And I'll be 67 in August. And I feel better. I hope I inspire people. But more importantly is I know that the coming years are going to get better. They're not going to get worse. And that's what I hope for you. That's what this whole thing is about, is to inspire you and you make the next third of your life the very, very best third. If you do me a favor, if you'd click like, if you'd subscribe, if you'd comment, if you'd share this, it helps us grow this podcast, grow this platform, so we can really help more and more guys, more and more people make a difference and live with intentionality. Again, thank you so much. Couldn't do it without you. Have a great, great day.